They tell you that you are free, that you can grow, choose, build your destiny. They hand you lullabies wrapped in hope, cartoons full of heroes, classrooms full of promises. But the truth is darker. By the time you take your first breath, the script has already been written. The cradle is not a sanctuary, it is the first cell of the prison. Invisible chains hang above your head, polished with words like duty, responsibility, and manhood. And before you even speak, those chains are ready to close around your neck. The manipulation does not begin in adulthood. It begins in childhood. Every toy you hold, every story you hear, every correction you endure, it all carries a hidden code. Cry, and you are silenced. Doubt, and you are mocked. Resist, and you are shamed. Piece by piece, the boy is erased, and in his place, a role is constructed, a role designed not for freedom, but for service. You are not raised, you are programmed. Look closer. The fairy tales of knights dying for kingdoms, the films of men sacrificing for families, the slogans of be strong, be a man, be a provider. They are not entertainment, they are indoctrination. Every frame, every verse, every cheer is a command disguised as inspiration. Chains disguised as crowns, and millions march into manhood believing they are free, when in truth they are carrying scripts they never chose. By the time you become an adult, your cage is invisible but airtight. You think you are chasing success, but you are only running faster inside the wheel. You think you are falling in love, but you are stepping into contracts written in invisible ink. You think you are living for yourself, but every sacrifice is silently harvested by the machine. Society whispers, be strong, provide, endure. But beneath those whispers lies the real message, obey, obey, obey. And when you finally collapse under the weight, exhausted, broken, hollow, the system does not thank you. It replaces you. Another boy, programmed from birth, steps into your role and the cycle continues. This is the hidden matrix, the architecture of manipulation that turns men into soldiers, wallets, protectors, martyrs, while killing their individuality, silencing their pain, and erasing their humanity. You were not born free. You were born into a script older than culture, sharper than law, harder than steel. And unless you decode it, you will mistake slavery for purpose, obligation for love, and destruction for strength. To understand the manipulation that defines modern masculinity, you have to strip away the illusions. You have to stop looking at the surface, career goals, family roles, romantic ideals, and instead study the psychology that quietly shapes every step of a man's life. Because what looks like choice is often nothing more than obedience coded into the nervous system. Developmental psychology tells us identity is built through reinforcement, reward for compliance, punishment for deviation. For boys, this cycle is harsher than for girls. Vulnerability is not nurtured, it is attacked. A boy who cries is told to be strong. A boy who doubts is told to man up. A boy who resists is ridiculed until he submits. What begins as guidance becomes programming. What feels like teaching becomes conditioning. By the time he's a teenager, he no longer asks, "Who am I?" He asks, "What do they need me to be?" Evolutionary psychology adds another layer. For thousands of years, survival demanded division of labor. Men hunted, fought, and died so that others could live. Women nurtured, gathered, and secured continuity. These roles were not chosen. They were enforced by nature's brutality. But here's the paradox. While society evolved, technology advanced, and women's roles expanded, men's programming remained fossilized. The ancient survival script, "You are provider, protector, sacrifice," never expired. It became the default code that still governs male identity today. Social psychology explains why the code is so effective. Fear of exclusion. Humans fear exile more than death itself, because in the tribe, exile meant starvation. That fear still lingers. Men conform not because they believe, but because they dread being labeled failures. They dread the ridicule of peers, the judgment of family, the whispers of society. And so they obey. They follow scripts that were written long before their birth, terrified of being the one who breaks them. Cultural psychology locks this conditioning into myth. Every culture glorifies the man who suffers for others. From ancient epics to modern films, the hero is not the one who thrives. It's the one who dies, bleeds, or sacrifices. Boys grow up idolizing warriors, martyrs, fathers who give everything and keep nothing. Rarely do they see men who simply lived free, who built for themselves, who preserved their individuality. Culture teaches them that meaning equals loss, that love equals sacrifice, that honor equals annihilation. Finally, institutional psychology cements the prison. Schools reward obedience over creativity. Workplaces celebrate burnout as commitment. Religions preach sacrifice as holiness. Governments enforce laws that bind men to financial and legal obligations long after love fades. Each institution repeats the same message: your life is not yours. It belongs to others. This is the manipulation matrix, a system where biology, culture, society, and institutions converge to program men into roles of service. It is efficient, brutal, and invisible. Efficient because it keeps the machine running, brutal because it strips men of identity, invisible because the chains are disguised as honor, love, and responsibility. And here lies the psychological tragedy. Men don't even see it. They mistake obedience for strength. They mistake slavery for duty. They mistake programming for identity. Until one day, they collapse under invisible weight, never realizing that the cage was built around them before they even had a choice. To decode the manipulation matrix, you have to see its mechanisms one by one. They're not random. They're layered, systematic, and so deeply normalized that most people mistake them for life. But once you name them, you see the code. Here are the 5 hidden mechanisms that silently program men from childhood to collapse into roles they never chose. 1. The childhood script. The first trap is written before a boy even knows he is in a game. It's not advice, it's indoctrination. Every man up, every don't cry, every be strong is another line of code that kills authenticity and replaces it with obedience. Developmental psychology calls this role conditioning. The child is taught that emotions are liabilities, that expression equals weakness, and that silence equals virtue. This script is powerful because it doesn't feel like programming, it feels like growing up. And so, millions of boys internalize the same hidden message: my worth exists only when I suppress myself. 2. The hero myth culture takes the programming further. Through films, stories, religions, and myths, boys are told that the ideal man is the one who sacrifices. From Greek heroes who die for their people to Hollywood fathers who give everything for their families, the pattern is identical. Your life only has value when it ends in service to others. This is why men equate suffering with honor, why they believe love must hurt, why they see destruction as proof of devotion. The myth is seductive because it cloaks annihilation in the language of nobility. Hidden message: you exist to die for others. Living for yourself is betrayal. 3. The provider trap. As the boy grows, the script mutates into economics. His value is no longer about feelings, it's about function. Get a job, provide, sacrifice. His career, his health, his ambitions all become collateral to the role of provider. He is told that until he can produce money, status, resources, he is incomplete. This is not guidance, it's conversion. The boy is turned into a paycheck with legs. The tragedy is that men mistake this as pride. They believe they're building a legacy, when in reality, they're building cages. Hidden message: you are not a person, You are a resource. 4. The social cage. If the first 3 traps fail, society enforces the script with ridicule and judgment. A man who rejects marriage is mocked as immature. A man who doesn't have children is labeled selfish. A man who pursues his own dreams over obligations is shamed as irresponsible. Social psychology shows us that humans fear exclusion more than death itself. That fear keeps men in line, not because they believe the script, but because deviation means exile. This cage is invisible but effective, because men end up policing each other. Hidden message: your freedom ends where the tribe's expectations begin. 5. The institutional leash. The final layer is the hardest to escape. Systems, governments, corporations, and religions codify male obligation into permanent contracts. Divorce courts strip assets. Workplaces reward burnout. Religions sanctify sacrifice as holy. Schools teach boys to obey, not to create. By adulthood, the leash is legal, cultural, and systemic. It doesn't matter what he feels, what he dreams, or what he wants. The contract has already been signed in his name. And when he collapses, the machine doesn't mourn him. It simply replaces him with another boy already programmed to obey. Hidden message: you were never free. The leash was locked before you could walk. And together, these 5 mechanisms: childhood script, hero myth, provider trap, social cage, and institutional leash, form the manipulation matrix. Each one reinforces the next, building a prison so seamless that men learn to guard it themselves. They don't need chains, because the most effective chains are invisible. The truth is brutal. You cannot destroy the manipulation matrix, but you can outmaneuver it. Every trap has a counter. Every script has a crack. The men who survive are not those who rage blindly against the system, but those who see the code and refuse to collapse under it. Here is the survival manual: 5 rules to resist the 5 hidden mechanisms. 1. Escaping the childhood script. Rule: redefine strength. Strength is not silence. Strength is self-mastery. The childhood script teaches boys to numb themselves, to bury feelings, to amputate emotion in the name of toughness. That's not strength. It's self-destruction. How to survive? When the voice of programming says, "Man up, stop crying," reframe it. Don't suppress, channel. Anger can fuel creation. Pain can be transmuted into art, business, training, innovation. Vulnerability, when controlled, becomes connection. Emotional mastery is not the absence of feelings, but the ability to direct them with precision. Never do. Don't confuse numbness with resilience. A man who feels nothing is not strong. He is broken. 2. Breaking the hero myth rule. Stop worshipping sacrifice. The system thrives on martyrs, on men who give until nothing remains. But you do not prove love by bleeding out. You prove love by living fully. How to survive? Redefine your definition of heroism. A hero is not the man who dies for others. It's the man who thrives for others. Live with vitality. Build with purpose. Show your children, friends, or community that strength is expansion, not collapse. By becoming a man who flourishes, you inspire more than a man who perishes. Never do. Don't let guilt tricks shame you into annihilation. When someone says, "If you loved them, you would give more," remember, a dead man provides nothing. Survival requires oxygen. Keep yours. 3. Escaping the provider trap rule. Provide with boundaries. Provision does not mean endless sacrifice. It means sustainable stability. How to survive? Build systems, not cages. Automate savings, protect assets, and invest in skills that generate freedom rather than chains. Teach resilience to those around you instead of dependency. Give, but not until you're empty. Provide, but not until you vanish. True provision equips others to stand alone, not forces you to collapse so they can lean forever. Never do. Don't confuse martyrdom with love. A man who destroys himself financially or emotionally to prove devotion doesn't create legacy. He creates absence. 4. Breaking the social cage rule. Silence beats justification. Society will always try to shame you back into the cage. Why aren't you married yet? Why don't you have kids? Why did you quit that job? Every question is bait. Explanation is a trap. How to survive. Say less. Act more. Build your life in alignment with your own values, not their expectations. Protect your circle. Not everyone deserves access to your battles. Let consistency, results, and presence speak louder than words. People respect what they cannot manipulate. Never do, don't chase approval from the crowd. Every justification is a confession of weakness. Respect cannot be begged. It must be demonstrated. 5. Cutting the institutional leash rule. Prepare as if freedom depends on it, because it does. The system is not neutral. It is designed to bind you through contracts, obligations, and laws. Walking into it blind is suicide. How to survive. Learn the rules before you play. Whether it's marriage, business, loans, or commitments, treat every signature as a battlefield. Knowledge is armor. Documentation is weaponry. Preparation is survival. The system preys on blind men. Don't be one. Never do. Don't sign blindly. Don't rely on promises. Don't assume fairness. Governments, corporations, and institutions care about compliance, not compassion. Protect yourself before you're trapped. The formula of survival. Every trap follows the same cycle. See, name, respond. See, recognize the mechanism instantly. This is the childhood script. This is the provider trap. Name, label it in your mind. Awareness kills the illusion. Respond. Act with clarity, not panic. Stay calm. Stay unshaken. Refuse to justify. Refuse to collapse. The men who survive are not the ones who perform for the system, but the ones who break the script and create a life on their own terms. Survival is not rebellion. It is discipline. It is mastery. It is the ability to love fiercely without chains, to provide without erasure, to live without apology. The system wants you blind. It wants you tired, obedient, and broken. It wants you to mistake chains for crowns, obedience for virtue, and silence for strength. That's why most men collapse before they even realize the game exists. They work, they sacrifice, they provide, yet all they get in return is emptiness, ridicule, and obligations that never end. They think they're free, when in reality they're just well-programmed prisoners. But you are no longer blind. You've seen the code. You've seen how the manipulation matrix scripts men from childhood, exploits them through myths of sacrifice, drains them through provision, cages them through social shame, and finally locks them down with institutional chains. You've seen how every story you were told, every be a man you heard, every cultural script you absorbed was not about your freedom, it was about your control. The question is, what will you do now? You have two choices. The first, collapse like the majority. Keep following the script. Keep working until you're a hollow shell. Keep sacrificing until there's nothing left. Keep obeying until you vanish into silence, celebrated only as a good man who died for everyone else. That's the destiny of the programmed. That's the fate of the blind. The second, break the script, refuse the cage, stop mistaking obedience for love and sacrifice for strength. Redefine what it means to survive. Redefine what it means to provide. Redefine what it means to live. That doesn't mean abandoning responsibility. It means refusing to let responsibility erase you. It means becoming the exception, the man who sees the code, names it, and refuses to collapse under it. Understand this. Survival is not about rage. Rage burns out. Survival is about awareness, discipline, clarity, the ability to stand silent and unshaken while the world scrambles to pull you back into the cage. That is mastery. That is freedom. That is what separates the broken from the unshaken. And here's the truth. The manipulation matrix does not end here. Fatherhood, marriage, society itself, all of them are layered with deeper contracts, obligations, and traps you've never been warned about. If you thought this was dark, what comes next will shake you even harder, but only if you're prepared to see it. So here's what you do. Subscribe now, stay here. This is the only place where you'll learn to decode the secret psychology of modern society. The only place where you'll learn to survive the traps that consume most men. The only place where you'll gain the awareness that turns chaos into clarity, chains into choice, weakness into strength. Because the next layer is waiting, and you cannot afford to walk into it blind. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. Watch the next episode. Your survival depends on it.